everybody, welcome to the Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast with me, Philip Ideson, and Darragh MacAnthony, chairman and co-owner of English League One side, Peterborough United. Darragh, another good win the weekend.
As for you boys, I'll tell you, it's,
yeah,
the synergy's nice, wouldn't it? It'd be nice to get 6 wins in a row now together. So
I know, right?
Yeah, Saturday was interesting, because you're always, because everyone keeps ringing me, friends, family, people I haven't heard from for a year. Oh, Sunderland at this game, Hull of this game, and I'm just like, listen, stop with the permutations. This time of the year, to be a bookie would be horrible because you cannot predict. You could say Peterborough's favourites to win at Swindon, and then you think Swindon are desperate and fighting for their lives. You could say Burton are going to lose to Portsmouth, and Portsmouth are on the ascendancy, and Burton go and beat Portsmouth. You would never think Charlton would go to Sunderland. What I'm trying to say is that you to do predictor tables, to work permutations out at a time, as everyone says, is squeaky arse time of the season, it all goes out the window. I mean, Wimbledon scores 5 goals on Saturday and moves out of the bottom 4. That's it's the stage of the season where you just cannot do algorithms and permutations and everything else because human nature comes in big time. And what I mean human nature is human emotion of, can you handle pressure? And do you still have the desire to go out and save your club from relegation or win a promotion? So it doesn't matter we're playing Swindon. It doesn't matter who we play next. Every game is on merit. It's a one-off game kind of thing on merit. So I said it last week after Sunderland, we're probably going to have to win all our games. And I still stand by that. And I'd said it all week, and we're probably going to have to score a lot of goals. So the only disappointment from Saturday was I think we missed 6 one-on-ones. Probably should have been a lot more. But I don't mind that. If we win a game and we've had 20 shots on goal, that's fine by me because we're doing the right things. And eventually you kind of do the business. Do you know what I mean? When you're creating that many chances, it's when you watch a game and your team's not creating chances. That's when you have to worry. And I'd said to you after the Sunderland game, I was quite at ease because we've played the best in the league. We played Hull. We were unlucky at our place. We dominated them till the red card. We've played Oxford. We should have won at their place. We've played Sunderland, should have won the game on chances, even though they controlled the possession, we had the best chances. So it tells me we have a really, really good team and a really good squad. So, what will be now, and it's up to the players and the management staff and stuff to do what they've got to do. But the mission is, should they, choose to accept it, they're going to have to probably win every game. And, after what's happened in the past, that's the only way, that's the only thing I'm looking at. You go, win every fucking game, no matter who you play. And you chasing the playoffs and being 3 points out, you're probably in the same position because there's so many clubs stacking up in League Two. Just like in League One, you could say, it's a 3-horse race, but Blackpool are in unbelievable form. You know what I mean? There are other teams there. Mm-hmm. Everyone's got different run-ins. It doesn't matter. So, look, it's going to be really exciting. And I guess it's exhilarating to be really involved in the heat of the battle. That's the best part of it, right? Tell me about your game on Saturday.
Yeah, so it was a mad game, and it's a mad situation, I think, in League Two right now. So League Two generally, just from a table perspective, I think there's 4 or 5 of us all on the same points, all 3 points behind the playoffs. And there's probably 2, maybe 3 playoff spots up for grabs, I'd say. So, I was looking at some stats on after the game on Saturday, and it basically was showing that I think half, if not 3/4 of League Two can still get in the playoffs and get promoted.
That's mental.
Yeah. So we're 3 points below, 3 points off the playoffs. We've got a game in hand over a couple, but not the ones that we're 3 points off of. We've got inferior goal difference, but there's still, 6-7 games left to go. So there's plenty of time.
Are you working permutations and watching everyone else's fixtures? Are you looking at all that?
So I'd say not like I may have done in the olden days. Back in the day, I'd have every single team and the 7 games and modeling it all out. Now I had a sneak, look against the games the next week, but that's about it. I you know what? I don't even know who we're playing from one week to the next at this point. Never mind everybody else. So, I don't get that far ahead of myself.
But I mean, I guess it's no consolation. But let's say you did fall short.
Yeah,
you're well set up next year for a title run. or what you're putting together?
I think so. When you look at the form table, so the two new managers have been in charge, I think, 23 games. And so since they took over, we've got 45 points, which would actually have us top of the table.
Wow.
So we got the momentum, which is, we've talked about on the pod, I always look at as you want to just end one season strong, because even if you have a complete overhaul of playing squad, I don't know what it is about it, just either the cloud or the opposite that hangs over a club, that if you end strong, you usually start strong. So I think that's really what I'd want to take. Even if we don't make it, at least we can try and end strong. Because we have got the basis of a decent side. I think we're a little bit dull at the moment. It's very pragmatic as the football. So that's going to be something which I'll see if they can address in the summer. But, where we were, obviously talking on the pod 4 months ago, versus where we are now, it's night and day.
As a Bradford fan, what would you say you did go up?
Yeah.
What would you have to do next year to be competitive in League One?
My personal opinion is the squad is nowhere near League One quality. So I think we'd need a pretty big overhaul. I think that we're probably in a natural place where we are, around the playoffs, going for playoffs and, on a good run of form. But I think there'd need to be a lot of work done in the summer if we did get promoted. Because I think that really the work that was done in January for the transfer window was done with an eye of getting us up next year. So if we get ahead of that, then, are those players ready for League One yet? I'm not so sure. We'll see. But it'd be a good problem to have.
Yeah, great problem to have. Yeah, I never buy into that theory when someone says, "Oh, do you really want to go up this year? You're never going to be nowhere near it." It's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
You always want to go
and
up.
you never know what next year is going to bring.
Yeah, exactly. So, regardless, you want to go up. It's just the way it is.
Now, the game itself, so we were playing Grimsby. And Grimsby, even though they were bottom, you said about when you lost to Rochdale, those teams at the bottom are fighting just as much as those in the playoffs.
Didn't lose. We drew.
You drew. I'm sorry. Wash my mouth out.
You felt like a loss.
Exactly. I felt your pain. Even though they're bottom, they were unbeaten in 8. And so it was a tough game for us, but they imploded. I'm sure you probably saw that one of their players, basically halftime whistle went, one of their players, Stephen Payne, went over and headbutted Phil Moraes, who's next City player. So, everyone's kind of congratulating Agent Moraes.
Phil's a pal of mine.
Yeah.
So, we talk on Zoom and stuff, and I've been giving him advice on some moves he's making after football. So, yeah, I saw the incident. I mean, what the fuck? Like, what on earth are you doing? I mean, listen, I love a good dressing room ruck after a game, or even at halftime to rile each other up, because there's nothing worse than a quiet dressing room. There's nothing worse than a quiet pitch. Sometimes the biggest criticism, win, lose, or draw, is you're too quiet in the pitch, lads. You need to be, like, I know my manager was probably angry after the game on Saturday because of the chance. There's nothing wrong with that, because that is the pursuit of happiness. You want everything to be as good as it can be. But to assault one of your teammates, would you call that assault?
It was, yeah. I mean, he's lucky he didn't fully connect because he tried. It was insane. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's assault.
Yeah.
And there's one thing pushing one of your teammates, are going, "Oh, fuck off," or "Leave me alone," or "It's your fault," or whatever. But to actually lay flesh on, you know what I mean? Like if it's in the dressing room afterwards and one player goes across at the other and tries to fisticuff, but not really. It's more of a kind of fisticuff play school fight. But to actually try to assault one of your teammates, what the fuck is he thinking? Like, you moron.
And what really surprised me is the manager came out afterwards and he laid blame on Phil as well.
Right.
And basically the way it played out was that, Moraes was a pass. It was an errant pass, but the other guy didn't try and even get it. And so Phil had a word and he came over and headbutted him, basically. And to me, there was nothing in that incident that was wrong with anything that any player would do on a pitch when he doesn't think his teammate's not trying, in terms of a race. So it was just interesting seeing the kind of the reaction from the Grimsby manager afterwards.
I mean, it's almost a sackable offence, that, for a player to do that. So, but look, I can't speak for the Grimsby manager, the Grimsby owner. But if one of my players did that, I'd be pushing them that way, regardless who they are.
Yeah.
There's some stuff that's just unacceptable, and if he'd connected and done damage to another player like that, no, there's no place for that, in football. So that's a horrible thing.
Where do you stand on him being a player being sent off when they're basically doing it to their own teammate.
Well, I guess, it's probably the right thing. The ref's looking at it and it's like, it's fucking GBH. I mean, you can't have that in the game. It's like if a player assaults a fan,
Yeah.
you don't send them off. I mean,
Yeah.
where does it stop and start?
It's only if it's an opposition player,
Yeah, you can't think like that, because at the end of the day, it's in the rules of the game. You're doing harm to somebody on the pitch. You know, like I said, if he connected and really hurt Phil and broke his nose or whatever else, broke his jaw. I mean, Jesus Christ! I mean, this is football, and we've got to stamp that shit out. And if we can't do it in the professional game and the stuff you see going on in the amateur game with referees getting attacked and everything else, you have to send out a no nonsense policy signal. Sorry, that just can't happen. So yeah, bad events for Grimsby. Have they fired him? Have they got rid of him? What have they done?
No, I think they said that he's unlikely to play for them again this season. I believe he's on loan, so it's probably. I mean, I'd imagine they'd just send him back.
Yeah, well, the other club won't take him back probably because of the wages, unless
I guess you never know what the clauses are, do you? When the record clauses.
Yeah, we'll continue to pay him, but he's not around our football club. So that's probably good news that he's not in the dressing room. You don't want him near the dressing room, for the next. Because have they got a chance of staying up, Grimsby? Or are they done?
I think they're pretty much down, and that was probably, even though they've done well in terms of unbeaten run, I think they're a little bit too far adrift.
Yeah, no, that's horrible events.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to come back to something that was Posh related. So you signed Joe Bursick on loan, on emergency loan, goalkeeper. I wanted to know just a little bit about what does the emergency loan. I mean, what does that look like? When can you use it? When can you not use it?
It's complicated. It's very complicated. I know there was a little bit of uproar about us doing it, but bar reserve goalie, we got kids under that. We've lost. We didn't want to lose the Golden Gloves winner. I mean, we got a goalkeeper who's probably one of the top 3 goalies in League One, so that we've lost, and it's a bad injury, and it's a 1 in a million injury. So, and he hurt himself, and of course we need to bring in competition for the number 2 per se. So I'm not going to get into all the details of how it works in the emergency loan. All I'll say is Liz, the football secretary, I spoke to her probably 18 times in 2 days while we were trying to make it happen and trying to do the deal and trying to obviously get approval. And we did everything within the rules. The fact that I think Dan, our number 2, hasn't even played 5 games.
It seems like that was like the threshold was, if you haven't played 5 EFL games, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's lots of teams who would do the same, and I'd have no problem with any of the promotion teams going out and doing the same. It's a goalkeeper, for fuck's sake. Yes, whilst it's important, they're not going to score a hat trick to win you fucking games. Right. And look, he's a very good goalkeeper. So value him at like fucking millions. And it was a good recruit, and it was a good deal. And again, we're working within financial fair play. We're very thankful to Stoke for working with us on that. And he's had League One experience. He's been on loan in League One already, and he played in the Champs. So yeah, we're hoping he can come in. The last time we got promoted, we lost one of the best goalies in Joe Lewis with a knee injury in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And and won promotion. So it's funny. I'm hoping it's an omen.
Keep your fingers crossed. No, I mean, you were lucky that you got a good one in, and does that, the ability to bring in an emergency loan if your subkeeper basically hasn't played under 5 games, does that play into the recruitment of a number 2, or is it just happenstance that you were able to take advantage of that because of the situation with your number 2?
All I know is that we played within the rules. We were allowed to go a goalkeeper. He's competing with our number 2. Now we have 2 goalkeepers because again, like the next one down is like a 17-year-old. There has to be some reason and logic here. And I would, again, I'd have no problem with any other club in the division doing the same. We're not trying to scam the system. We're not trying to get an advantage on other teams. That's a load of bullshit. At the end of the day, it's quite a pertinent position, goalkeeper. Yeah. So you have to have 2 fit goalkeepers ready to do the business. We didn't foresee our goalie having a season-ending injury, and if he's back and he can play, he'd fucking play. Trust me.
Right.
So we're very thankful to be able to have done it. But at the end of the day, look, I said at the time, fuck me, it's going to be kamikaze football. We're going to have to score more or whatever else. It nearly didn't happen because, you're negotiating with Stoke, you're trying to make it happen. There wasn't really a long list of goalies. It was kind of last minute. I got a phone call the day after to tell me how bad Christie's injury was and he was going to be done. And it's like, fuck me. We lost Jack Taylor for like 7 games. Yeah. we would have won the league by now if we hadn't lost Jack Taylor for 7 games. Do you know what I mean? These things happen at certain times. I don't know. They're like a test from the Lord above. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping that was the final one.
Now, did you see the Leeds Man City game on Saturday?
Yeah. Everything Leeds are doing, nothing is a surprise to me. What was my tip at the start of the season?
Yeah,
with
you
Leeds?
had them top 8, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, so I'm disappointed in them that they're not in the top 8 already. No, I think where are they? 10th, 9th, 10th. So I'm joking. Obviously, I still think they'll finish top 8.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about Liverpool playing them next. I'm not surprised. Like I said to you, Leeds were always going to be that club. The way they're set up, the manager they have, that they are going to take to the Premier League like a duck to water. And in fact, I think they're coming into a golden period of like 10, 15. I do. I think Leeds within the next 3-4 years, if not sooner, will be like in the Champions League spots.
So this isn't their ceiling then, this is the beginning.
Oh, no way. No way. Because this is a big club. This is a big club that when everything's normal and you're getting full fans, the commercial might, the income, the revenue, it's run by some clever people. They won't go out and spunk money badly. You know, they've got a good, your only worry is the manager because he's year to year. Mm-hmm. So that would be the only worry, but I'm sure they'll have a plan for that. But I really see Leeds on the ascendancy, and I really see Leeds being, within the next 3-4 years, like really pushing for top 4. You know, next year I would say top 6, definitely getting the UEFA Cup or whatever else. That club's just building and building. They've sold equity to the 49ers. Yeah. Commercially, it's going to be a mammoth again. It was always a big club. So, and I've always said this to you, big clubs eventually rise again. So none of this is a surprise what I'm saying. But I guess the added bonus as a Leeds fan is you're watching some good football. You know, was I surprised they beat 10 men and beat Man City? Right. No, because I watched the first Man City game and Leeds should have won that game. So it was probably, the way Man City play was probably perfect for the way Leeds play. Do you know what I mean? And that's why it worked out. So kudos to them. Like I said, as a Leeds fan, it's just a golden period. And the only shocking thing is not getting to see fucking anything.
I know, right? That's kind of, you know, I know we've kind of repeated it so many times, but that's kind of the one thing that we're trying to act in this normality of all this football happening. But it's just so sad that nobody could get to see it in person and the atmosphere that would go along with some of this.
It's frustrating. Do you know what I mean? So at this stage now, they should all have full crowds back.
Actually, I want to ask you very briefly, because we were kind of talking about the playoffs earlier, and you know how I now have my eyes on the playoffs, which of course means we're not going to make it. Have you heard anything in terms of fans being allowed back in for the playoffs, or is it just playoff final?
I have. I got something through from the EFL. Dates. I can't comment.
All right, let's watch this space then.
So
let me go to Kevin De Bruyne. So we're talking about Manchester City signing a new contract without using an agent.
Love it.
Yeah, I thought you might like that.
He's a man, absolute man. Love it. You know what? If you ever listen to him interviewed, you know, footballers get a lot of, flack sometimes for not being the brightest. And, listen, every industry has a few dumbbells, do you know what I mean? Like lying around. But what De Bruyne has done there is, whenever you hear him talk, he's intellectual, he's intelligent. More and more players should do what he did. And I've got no problem with that at all, because he's not stupid. He knows that he's either going to give 10% of his income away to an agent, or he's going to get to the figure he wants and save the 10%.
Yeah.
And the reason I know he did well by it wasn't a quick deal. They've been talking for 6 months. So if he'd gone in and done a deal in a week, you'd worry about, oh shit, did the club get the better end of the deal? You know, the player seems to have signed. No, he obviously methodically worked on it and did it. And listen, he's probably one of, if not the best player in the Premier League. And he'll be the type of player, he's 28 now, the way he plays and the way his game is, he'll probably play till he's 35, 36. You know, you think of the players in years.
This isn't his last contract.
No, he's got longevity in it, because his game's not on pace. Do you know what I mean? His brain works twice as quick as everyone else's. So, and Pep has used him deeper and deeper. And, I could see him even probably end up even deeper as his career gets older, like Gary McAllister did for Liverpool, where he can just, even sit in front of a
just has the vision and just pinging the ball everywhere.
Yeah. So, and look, he's a wealthy young man. He did the deal right for him and his family, and kudos to him and well done to him.
Now, at the other side of the table, we've got Newcastle, where fans are raising money to buy a stake in the club. I think it shows the hard times, but obviously the passion that Newcastle fans, of course, to try and do something, to feel like they have some kind of power What do you make of fans actually buying a stake in a club, especially where your percentage of it is only going to be so minuscule? Is it anything other than just a token gesture?
It's a token gesture, but look, the Geordie fans are magnificent, and regardless whoever owned it, if Colonel Gaddafi owned Newcastle, they'd still all show up. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because they just love their football. A couple of my pals are Geordies, and they're just like obsessive about that place. And I've been there to a couple of games, and there's no better place to go. Like I said, it was the most daunting thing I ever did when I stepped from the tunnel up to where I was sitting, and then down to the pitch. It was an unbelievable stadium. So look, they want to feel part of it. They can buy a small equity stake, and I don't know if Ashley had any sense, he'd either sell or he'd maybe put a fan as part of the board to try and. I've always felt Mike Ashley's a great guy. I've met him. I like him, and I've always felt. I even reached out to him not so years ago when I ran a football magazine to say, look, let me do an interview with you. You're not showing fans who you are. Give them more access to you. Speak to them. You know what I mean? Like don't shy away from the challenge. Like I've always said, like if I've got a problem with fan groups or fans, I'll talk to you. I'll have it out. Let's get at it, because transparency is the best way forward. And you can turn around and say to fans, I fucked up. I've done this, I've done that bad, and I'm going to try and do better. But hey, I'm paying all my bills. I'm making sure you got a football club. I'm making sure you got something to watch on a Saturday. I can point you in the direction of other clubs who've fallen down the leagues, in your beloved Bradford, fucking suffering. So cut me some slack here. And I've always felt if he did that, he would get more patience from the Newcastle fans, but it's probably too late.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's past the point of no return, isn't it? Unfortunately.
Yeah, and that is a real shame, because, like I said, great fan base, really, really good club. I couldn't speak highly enough about Newcastle.
Well, talking about takeovers, we've got some action that's taking place, I think, across the leagues from takeovers. I want to start with Ipswich, and we actually had a question. I'm going to jump in with a question from Harvey, who emailed to ask. I'm really interested to hear the opinion of both regarding the takeover now it's confirmed. Apparently, £40 million sale to Marcus Evans, with him retaining 5% and wiping off all the debt. The new owners being a pension fund. How sustainable is a pension fund as a football club owner?
I read something recently again about all the money that they have under management, and it's a big fund, but it's how they justify to their pension clients that they're spending on a football club. You start spending copious amounts of money and big wages and big fees, but say it doesn't work, that money's not going back to the pension fund anytime soon. So, and it's your client's money. So I've no problem with funds buying a football as long as they're managed right, because the expectation of the clients behind the fund is that they're looking for an annualized return every year.
Yep.
So I've always said Ipswich is a monstrous club. Get it right, and the fund's going to have a payday. If they had 2 promotions in 5 years, suddenly they would have an asset worth 300 million. And if they flipped it, they're going to come out with a 200 million profit or whatever it would call it. And that goes back to the pension holders, and everyone's happy and everyone's made money. Now, if it's a disaster and they hire and fire loads of managers and they spunk loads more money and suddenly they sold it for 30 million on top of what they've already put in, and they lose 50 million, but even losing 50, 60 million for a pension fund with that many billions under management is fucking inconsequential. So I don't see it being a disaster. I think it's a great move for Ipswich fans. I think, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. I'd said at the time Paul Cook was probably the best manager to recruit. It was irate Cookie. So, I would say to who asked the question, good times ahead, just sit back and enjoy the ride.
It was interesting that they seem to be pretty transparent on and are available on Twitter, and the chief investment officer of the pension fund, which was interesting, basically said in not so many words, but the thesis for them is about investing in businesses that are not correlated with markets, that are not going to look at just the ups and downs of a traditional business cycle. So, I mean, that's going to play off one way or the other for them, isn't it? As you said.
And I hope Stuart Donald, when he bought Sunderland, was very open and out with the fans at the start. And then he obviously ran for cover when things got a little bit aggressive with him. And I didn't blame him for that, because it can get very toxic on social media. So my advice always is, if you're going to come out and be open, like the Ipswich people are, stay that way. Good or bad. Like, you'll see me, I'm on social media, good or bad. I've taken fucking hammerings and, whatever, but I'm still here. So I would say, if you're going to be like that and you start like that, carry on.
It's interesting to see from a valuation perspective. You got 40 million for Ipswich, And then you've got 2.5 million, I think was the figure I heard last week for Wigan, or thereabouts. Maybe it was 2.3 or 2.7 or something in that range. Obviously, Wigan have kind of been asset stripped to get to this point just to survive. But such a disparity. I mean, what's that? That's nearly 20x difference in valuation for two clubs in the same division.
Yeah, Wigan's worth a lot more money. And I think what you're not seeing there is that the Wigan deal was 2.5 mil, probably plus a load of debts.
Yeah.
So let's say there was 20 million in debts at Wigan. Mm-hmm. So it possibly could have been a 25 million pound deal. The Ipswich deal was 40 million with no debts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you look at it both ways. You can't say Wigan is 2.5 and Ipswich is 40. That's wrong. So you just have to look at it.
Doesn't tell the full story.
It doesn't tell the full story. And then assets, do Ipswich have players worth more money than Wigan? And it's like Peterborough. I would value Peterborough at near 40 million. And people go, you're fucking mad. But no, I'm not mad, because my playing squad is worth fucking millions.
Yeah.
We own our own stadium. There's a lot of things under the books with Peterborough that's worth a lot of money. It's why I valued the club at over 25 million when I sold my share to my partners, because I was sitting in meetings and saying, well, I got Jack Marriott worth 5 million. I got him worth X amount of millions. You can look at the gates and you can look at whatever else, but I run a really tight ship full of playing assets. And, the key to any football is having good playing assets. So, I've got the country's leading goal scorer in League One, who's probably worth 6-7 million now, that I'll get this summer if I wanted to, from 9 different clubs. So again, and that's just one player, never mind your Dembélés and your Schmeichels and your Jack Taylors and your young assets. So there's a lot of value there, you know what I mean? So the Ipswich deal, Marcus has done well, because he said he was in for 100, but I dare say probably really cash-wise and whatever else, if I was to make a guess, probably more like 60-70 million. He's kept a 5% stake. Mm-hmm. If they ever get sold for 300 million, his 5% stake is going to be worth a little bit more. Marcus Evans isn't a mug. He's not going to walk away with losing everything that he put in. So fair play to him.
And then we've got Derby, Eric Alonso, who is, I think, waiting on the fit and proper persons test. And he's promised to splash the cash if he needs to get Derby back into the Premier League, it seems. There's just a lot of money coming into football from overseas right now, isn't there?
There is, yeah. It is, and it's, people obviously smell opportunity, and for every Derby and every Wigan, and there's a lot of money out there at the moment from investors and people who maybe after the pandemic or just before the pandemic saw what was coming, sold, cashed up, had lots of liquid assets, lots of cash available. There's a lot of family funds out there with cash available, and they're looking for ways to make money. So there's a lot of money that can go into football, and if you invest money in the right way, you'll make money in football. You can do it. Yeah. You can do it. But you have to have the right people. You got to do it the right way. So I'm not surprised. I'm happy for Derby because they've had a rough run. Mel Morris as well has had a rough run. So if they've got a new owner and he passes the fit and proper person, he turns out to be, who he says he is, great. Good for Derby fans. And Rooney's probably going to keep them in the championship. So fair play.
Yeah.
What I'm reading on the figures, that's another bargain club. I think it was 20-30 million or whatever it was.
Yeah, I didn't have the number down here. I'm not sure what he paid.
If that's the figure, what's a fucking bargain?
Yeah.
I mean, an absolute bargain.
We have a couple of other things that it's been a busy week this week. So we've talked takeovers. Let's talk managers. And actually, I'm going to go into League Two. So there's been a couple of changes from a management perspective this week. First of all, Southend. So Phil Brown coming in and taking over at Southend, which seems to me like a bit of a Hail Mary. I don't know what you made of that.
Yeah, I mean, how far are they off being safe?
I think they're somewhere like 5 or 6 points.
Okay. I mean, Phil Brown is a competent manager. He had a good time under him last time. Obviously went sour at the end. It's a good club, Southend. I guess you probably have the agreement that if they go down, he's going to stay. So Phil Brown, get them out of the conference.
You would hope that they have that agreement as opposed to it just being come in for 6 games and chance your arm.
Yeah, and he's a bubbly guy. Yeah. So I guess you're looking for someone, an Ian Holloway type character, to go in and get everyone
rejuvenate.
Rejuvenate for a short time just to go bang. You know what I mean? So, I'm hearing Mark Cooper could be losing his job. This is probably out and stuff like that. So, again, Forest Green, they probably think, right, we're not in a great run. We're slipping, we're sliding. Again, managers always pay the price.
Yeah.
Because I told you before, players always vote with their feet. And Forest Green will probably win 2 or 3 in a row now. I mean, look what happened at Portsmouth. The manager leaves. They haven't won since the old king died. And then I think they win 3-4 in a row.
Yeah.
It's just typical football. Drives you fucking mad.
Yeah, it's like what happened with us. And Forest Green have really been slipping. So I think, something.
That's why, yeah, you're getting not desperate as an owner, but you're trying to do anything you can for that final little bit of just a push. Salford have done it twice.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So unfortunately, it's always the managers who pay the price. For that Hail Mary, as you just described earlier, and it works in some cases. In some cases, it doesn't, but it does work.
It works enough times to make it worth the risk.
Yeah. That's why people keep doing it, because they're like, I've got to go for broke. We got to win 5 games. I'm going to bring in fucking Bobo the Clown, you know what I mean, to come in and give a team talk, because it might just do something. It doesn't, it doesn't matter. So that's how crazy football is.
Yeah, and for somebody like Mark Cooper, I think he's out of contract at the end of the season anyway. So it probably suggests that there was maybe some moves afoot in the summer anyway, and he just decided to, maybe now is the time to bring it forward and again see what happens.
He will get another jump, no problem at all. So he's a good manager. He's got a good philosophy of football. I don't think he's going to struggle to get work again.
Now, I want to talk social media. My last question before we go into some questions from listeners. Swansea, Birmingham, and Rangers have all come off social media the last week or so, really making a stand against racism online, really by not posting anything for a week. Do you think that's going to make any difference? Or is it more, they're not signaling, that's the wrong word to say, because I think that there's obviously a lot of intent and it's genuine what they're doing, but will it make a difference?
I had this chat with my missus the other day, and it touches on politics a little bit. I understand why everyone's going to do it, and I will sign up for it as well. Because, as clubs, I think we're doing it after the Philip funeral. It's the following week when we do it. And there'll be a blackout. But Jack Dorsey and Zuckerberg do not give a fuck. And they will not give a fuck. And unfortunately, it's a bit like what's happened with taking the knee, which is, it hasn't really had the desired effect everyone's wanted it to have. And I've said this, people, we have to do more, the root cause of the issue. These social media companies don't give a toss. And I don't think it'll make a difference. And here's a classic example. Last week, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, her people complained to Twitter that she was getting a bit of flack from some people on Twitter. One of the people that had given her a bit of criticism, it wasn't really racial hatred or anything serious, had the police knock on their door. Who gave the police the details? Right. Now, we have these animals and scumbags racially abusing our sports people all the time. No police are knocking on their door because Twitter hasn't given their details over to the police, really. So again, you're a lefty. You tell me how AOC, the gobshite that she is, and her people manage to have Twitter chase down people and give their details to the police, but we have this horrific racism and abuse that goes on online. Nothing fucking happens. And that's why I can't stand big tech and the shit that they do and the fact that it's all politicized. And I feel for the players, and I hate when I see it. And I saw it again over the weekend. It was Raheem Sterling and some of the crap that you read. And you're like, why can't we get rid of these scumbags?
Right. There's no place for them in society, never mind football.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You had Twitter cover for Joe Biden and his son and all the issues to help get him voted in. But they haven't got the ability to go straight away and put in filters when they see certain words that they go, bang, right, we're pulling you off social media, we're giving your details to the police, and that's not going to happen. But basically help a president win an election, but they can't help stop horrific racism in sports. It pisses me fucking off.
It's certainly one rule, as you say, for the AOC, one rule for one and one rule for the other. And that's, they have the tools to do it. It's just the choice of when they do it.
Correct. And it's just, it's infuriating. It really is. For it still to happen to players, for this still to go on in the 21st century, for fuck's sake, can we get rid of this nonsense? And again, that's down to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. They've all got to get their act together, because like I said, if they can do some of the shit they've done during the election, they can certainly stop this horrific racism happening against our players, because it's not right. Not right.
All right, well, we're going to be back in a moment. We're going to take a quick break, and then we have some questions from listeners. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We have some questions. Before we go into the questions, I do want to remind everybody, if you would like to listen to the business podcast, we are recording every week within the Hard Truth business community. So really encourage you to come and join. It's really, what are we? We're 7 or 8 episodes in. We've had the Zoom call. We've had investment pitches. A lot of topics from pitching to investment. So we're going to record one today about getting hired in a pandemic. So a real wide range of topics.
And the good news is one of our guys from the community, actually, Sean, actually got a job recently.
Awesome.
He was over the moon. And yeah, he said it was the best £12 a month he's ever spent. So yeah, trust me, people out there who need a positive perspective on life, and you hear about my success and hear about how they can be successful, you got to sign up. Go to hardtruthbusiness.com.
All right. Well, let's go into some questions then. I'll start with Zach, and Zach is asking about loan to buy deals. I was wondering how loan to buy transfers work. Is a purchase fee agreed when the loan is agreed, or is the fee agreed once the loan is coming to an end?
So usually, if you do a loan to buy, it's around the time you do the loan deal.
Mm-hmm.
Say I'm loaning a player in, I want to buy the player and have an option. So what you would then do is, with the club you're loaning off, you would say, we're going to buy that player for 10 million. Now, the loan could be based on if you plays 5 games. It could be a one-dimension option where you have the option, they don't. So in other words, you can decide, or you can, like Liverpool have done with Oback, or I forget his name. Do you know what I mean? The boy they got from Germany. So they have the option to convert it into a £20 million sale in the summer, but Liverpool can walk away. So in some cases, you can do it both ways, where if the player plays 5 games, it automatically becomes a permanent transfer. So what you then have to also do, you have to pre-agree terms with the player and his agent that come summertime. If you take the option up, he is already pre-signed a 4-year deal. But you can also make it clear that we're pulling it if it doesn't go to plan.
Now, could you have a situation where, let's say, you have Jesse Lingard, on loan at West Ham, and there's a deal that's arranged at the time that the loan is signed, and he just plays out of his skin and exceeds expectations, and suddenly his value increases, that Man United could then say, you know what, because they have the right, let's say that they have the right, I'm not going to sell him to you for that anymore because he's worth more, but negotiate over the price, or pull out completely, like the loan finishes, and then basically say, hey, if you want him, you got to come back and start a new deal from scratch.
If there's a pre-fee fixed, and if there's a contract pre-signed, West Ham could execute that deal no matter what Man United wanted to do. Now, unfortunately, West Ham didn't do a loan to buy deal. They only did a loan, I believe. So Man United are sitting pretty because the players' value is appreciating every week. So whereas they're probably thinking 15 million when he first went out with a year to go, they're now probably going to ask for 30 million in the summer. So that favours United. However, you couldn't criticise West Ham, because if he gets them in the top 4 financially, what a fucking deal it was. So, but ideally, I tried to, when I first signed Schmodderks on loan, get a deal with a buy option. They wouldn't let me. So I had to come back, obviously, in the summer and hammer out the deal. But I have done those deals before. I have done deals where it got late in the window, we didn't have time, but we put in a quick loan to buy option at the end of the season and made it permanent.
Now, is that typically the situation where those do happen? Because I remember back in the day when we sold Naki Wells to Huddersfield, that's actually what they did, because it was right at the end of the window, and converted it basically to a buy deal within a week or two post the transfer deadline. Is that kind of the typical use case, and that's only when it happens, or do you see it in, how many loan deals will have that kind of stipulation in them?
A few will have it. Everything's down to the paperwork and the contract that you sign. So, I was offered money for a player in our team not so long ago. Oh, we'll take him on loan and then sign him in the summer. But it was more of a option for the other club. And I was like, no, that doesn't suit us. So, if we had another club who wanted to buy one of our assets in January and they didn't have the money in place. So they were like, look, we'll do a deal, a loan, and it'll become a permanent in the summer. We'll give you X now and then whatever. And it was like, no, we weren't selling anyway. But again, it was a club, and that's fine. Like if I have a cash flow issue and I say to a club, look, I'm definitely buying them. The paperwork's going to be solid. It becomes a perm in the summer. But I can't afford the VAT and the down payment right now. And I can't afford the 5% levy to the Football League. But I can do it in the summer because my budget doesn't allow it now. So let's just do that loan with the permanent in the summer. July the 1st, it becomes permanent. So it's really all down to the paperwork and how you do it.
How about sale and loan back? How often does that happen? Is that something that sometimes entertains your thoughts when you're looking at selling one of your best players?
We sold Ryan Bennett in the Championship a good few years ago for $3 million to Norwich. And it was late in the window and we couldn't get a replacement. So my only assistance in doing the deal, and we could have sold him to Swansea, was we had to have him back for 6 weeks. So we sold him, we loaned, he did his contract, his medical, everything was done. We got the money. And then he was loaned back to us on the same wages we were paying before for a period of, I think it was 4 or 5 weeks. And then he went up there after 4 or 5 weeks and kind of became a permanent fixture for Norwich. So we've done deals like that. Absolutely, you can do deals like that. I tried to buy a couple of younger players in the summer, I think in August, non-league. And again, under the thing of, look, guys, we don't want the player now. Buy the player and we'll give him back to you. It didn't come up, but, I would always do deals like that.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty attractive proposition for both sides because they're getting the cash, you're getting the asset, and the player continues to develop at that level when he's maybe not ready yet.
100%. So I have nothing against that kind of deal. That's the right kind of deal to do.
So I got a question from Jay, who's a Shelburne fan. Jay is asking, with the FAI and the IFA becoming increasingly interested in joining the League of Ireland and the Northern Irish League, would it be more investable, a club in Ireland, if those two leagues were combined?
For sure. There's a lot of talent in Ireland. It's never quite come off for us, but if I was building a multi-club ownership vehicle with multiple clubs, I would for sure want a club in Ireland, because it works well for younger players when their season is different from our season, that we can send players there to play. It would work that if I had a club in Ireland, whether it be Shelburne or Bows or Shamrock Rovers, I would buy the best of Irish talent from all the Irish leagues and have them partner with a top academy, working in unison with our club in the UK, our club elsewhere. So absolutely. And if that all happens, by some chance the leagues join together, yes, it would become a very, very attractive proposition to buy an Irish club.
It's interesting how more and more leagues are seemingly talking about, after what's happened with Belgium and the Netherlands coming together, that's a possibility, perhaps as a way to counter the Champions League, or as a way of providing a path, like a combined path with smaller countries, and having, still a local pyramid below it, but like a regional league, if you will, that then ultimately feeds into a Champions League.
You have to evolve. Rugby evolved, you know what I mean? And every sport has to evolve, and you have to go after where the money is and where the fans are, and the product has to be better all the time. So if your industry's shrinking and you have to join up or merge with other ones in other areas, you got to do what you got to do. Mm-hmm. It would be no different if we had to do the same in the UK. There's a reason you got Welsh clubs playing in our leagues. Yeah. You know what I mean? And whatever else. There's been discussions about maybe Scottish clubs coming over down the line. Who knows? In 50 years' time, there could be just a British league. Yeah. With clubs from all over Britain in one pyramid. Who knows?
Well, my last question today is from Dan. It actually came through the business community. And Dan asked, how involved would you as a data-driven owner be in team selection? And the kind of context I'll follow up that is primarily with regards to potential scenario where you're buying a young player due to all the data and all your metrics, and you basically the data-driven scouting that you have, but then your manager doesn't play them. Is that ultimately it's the manager's choice, or are you going to be having a word where you think there's an opportunity for that player?
Yeah, I'm not involved in team selection, but the manager knows what club we are, the way we are, the philosophy we have, what our scouting is based on. He's involved in that at the end when we choose players. So the idea that we would have players coming in, the manager doesn't play them or doesn't involve them, whatever else, he wouldn't be our manager. Yeah, and that's just hard truth, because we are what we are, and the manager has full trust in our system. That's why we work so well together. Every manager who works for our club has to know the way we are and what we do. So yeah, if we go out and spend money and the manager has agreed to it, and then the player comes in and the manager never gives them a look in, and you feel it's got nothing to do with talent, it's more about how the manager's got the hump with your recruitment process, the manager would fucking be gone.
Yeah, that's a different problem. All right. Well, I want to thank you for your time as usual. Yeah. I want to thank everyone for listening in. You're going to be back home in England, I think, next week when we record.
Yeah, I'll be in the UK next week, so we shall record it. And I think it's the time of the media blackout, quite potentially. But yeah, all good, Philip. I shall see you next week.
Will do. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thanks, guys.